many of you talk to yourselves? Just raise your hand. Okay, most of you you didn't raise your hand. You're sitting there going, no, I don't talk to myself. Research shows we have about 60,000 thoughts a day. 57,000 of those thoughts are the same thoughts you had yesterday. 95% of our thinking is turned over to unconscious because that's an efficient way for our brains to work. Our brains are so efficient that we turn things over to kind of autopilot. But that's the way it is with all of our thinking. We're just not conscious of how we're delivering the same messages to ourselves day in and day out. And so it's interesting because we expect different results in our lives when we're having the same thoughts every day. So what's the key? Change your thoughts. There's nothing more valuable than the way we think, particularly about possibilities, about obstacles, and about innovation.
Andrew Bennett helps people unlock the combined power of the heart and mind to create transformation. He began his career as Ross Perot's personal assistant and spent the next decade as a manager and leader with Perot's Fortune 500 company, EDS. In his last 2 years at EDS, he led a team in Australia, growing an account from $5 million to $65 million. As an entrepreneur, Andrew is founder and president of Bennett Performance Group, a consulting, training, and coaching firm working with leaders of organizations going through transformational change. For the past 2 decades, he has worked with organizations of all shapes and sizes in virtually every industry around the world. He has worked on nearly 40 significant organizational change initiatives. Andrew is a world-class magician. He has been studying, practicing, and performing for over 40 years. A member of London's Magic Circle, the oldest and most prestigious society of magicians in the world, Andrew uses magic in a powerful way to engage people, open the mind, and stimulate powerful learning.
We begin with an inspiration. We want to create something. We're going to call this bowling ball. And then the picture starts to get more clear. Now this is where I invoke the classic magic word. You all know it. You ready? Ready? Abracadabra. The word abracadabra is an Aramaic word, which is an ancient sacred language. It means what I speak is what I create. Abracadabra can be a very powerful concept in your inner dialogue. What you speak is what you create. In your interpersonal dialogue, what you speak with others is what you create. In your organizations, what are you talking about in your organizations? Because what we speak is what we create.
What really stood out to me the most was one of the things that he said early on in his presentation about the word abracadabra and what that means. So what I speak, I create. And so that really stood out to me just because I feel like now I need to be more purposeful in what I am speaking and what I want to create in my life. And so it was a very powerful statement that really kind of brought the whole presentation home for me.
What's unique about magic is it's the art of the possible. And I think it's a fantastic approach that someone like Andrew, who has lived and worked in the commercial world, and in fact worked in the same world that I work in, has brought his passion and his other profession of magic to bring it together.
I was Ross Perot's personal assistant when I was 23 years old. And when I did magic for the office party that year, Ross came up to me and he said, "Andy, you're real good at that magic. From now on, whenever you do a business presentation, I want you to use magic in it." And that's influenced me ever since then. And it's taken me around the world. It's been amazing. And when you think about how that was nurtured, and that's my point, is that A vision requires nurturing.
When you bring something different, that's what gets people's attention, but then it has to have substance to keep the attention, and this had substance.
To give you an experience of, wow, for a moment, anything is possible. You know that feeling? I call it the power of wow. That moment when you see the magic happen and you're a child again and you're reconnected with all kinds of possibility, it's just a wonderful moment. And then unfortunately in today's day and age, we very quickly move on to, how'd you do that? And we lose it. And I think we lose something precious there. We lose, even if we just talk about it as a source of innovative thinking in organizations, we lose that ability to kind of let go of debating and criticizing and disbelieving, and we move into, wow, what is possible? You know, a magician shows us that anything is possible. And what if we just could stay in that a little bit more than we do? So we started with a container, a crucible. It's a place where people can be safe to bring their hopes, their dreams, their aspirations, where their self-imposed limitations burn away. And with empty hands, I'm approaching the crucible now, and I just want to see, we've got a card with a hole, the 7 of Hearts. Is that your card, Mark?
Manish, how did you feel about what you just saw?
Yeah, but it was pretty amazing. I think the analogy between magician and the business, and in terms of leadership and the magician, is quite potent, really powerful. Just seeing how you can actually translate what the magician is doing into the business world. That was just fascinating.
I've come to the conclusion that there's nothing greater that a leader can do than create a container that creates hope. You know, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to know that hope is powerful stuff. And the word prosperity comes from a 2-part Latin word, prospera. That actually means toward hope. So when we talk about prosperity, we're talking about moving toward hope. Think about that, how powerful it is. So I wish you all great prosperity, and I say this with a final abracadabra.
But Tony, how was that presentation for you?
Well, I've got to say it was one of the most inspiring presentations I've ever listened to. He's a great storyteller, and I love the way that he was able to relate the story of magicians and the process of change through his own personal story, but it was very real and very practical, and yeah, I've got about 10 pages of notes.
Yeah, what are the key things that you'll take away from that?
I think he took something that was quite simple in terms of, quite complex, but made it quite simple in terms of the structure, and it was really, really illuminating.
This is my 3rd time seeing him, and I hope that I see him at least 30 more times.